It's Social Pulse Weekly, brought to you by Agorapulse. With this week's special guest, Juntae Delane, discussing this week's hottest topics and latest developments in social media marketing. With your host, Jennifer Watson. Here's Social Pulse Weekly.
Hey everyone, happy Friday, you guys. This is the last Friday of Q3, the last Friday of September. So wild, so crazy, but welcome in. I hope you guys are all doing great. There is a lot to talk about. So much social media news this week. It's insane. We could talk about it the entire day, but we're going to go over the latest social media news. We have an amazing guest interview today as well. We're going to have some fun trivia. We're going to be giving away an Agorapulse mug or t-shirts, whatever one the winner wants to choose. And then some more fun stuff. So much amazingness going on right now. But first of all, for everyone's watching, I want to welcome you in. And if it's your first time here, we are your all-in-one weekly social media show where we talk about and geek out about just about everything. And we have an expert interview. So I want to give a huge shout out to Rebecca Ward. Rebecca, what's going on? We love you so much. We got Carrie Ray in the house, Deb Mitchell, who is our community manager, Megan Powers, Justin Hornback, who we love, who is amazing. All you guys are wonderful. Let us know how your week went, how your quarter went, and what you're looking forward to as we head into Q4. And before we get any further, I want to give a big shout out to our show sponsor today, which is Julie Riley. And let's talk about how awesome she is just for a second. She is the owner of Depict Media in Wichita, Kansas. She began working in digital marketing in 2007 and has grown to become sought after for her knowledge in social media strategy. She's in also community management and messenger marketing. She is also a community moderator for Social Media Examiner. She has spoken and taught workshops on many different topics of social media marketing at these events and more, including Social Media Day, Wichita, the Video Marketing Summit for Entrepreneurs, the Nonprofit Chamber 2019 conference, and she has been a keynote speaker for the WIBA Small Business Connect. So with that said, Julie, thank you so much for being our show sponsor today. And just let's dive right in. We've got Jamie Cohen in the house. Jamie, what's going on? So glad you're here. We got Juan Santiago as well. So you guys, this is going to be an amazing show, but let's talk about the news, guys. And I want to hear your comments. I want to know what you think about this. Now, I don't know about you, if you run a lot of ads on Facebook or not. At my prior job, I did a lot more, and having that 20% text limit on images was so frustrating, trying to figure out and work it out. And I think everybody started sniffing this out earlier this week. They were seeing a couple of big names mentioned that there were some one-on-one meetings going on between Facebook and Facebook advertisers, that they were saying that they no longer are making it a rule that you have to have less than 20% text in an image. And they've also reflected that, Facebook has reflected that on their formal website talking about advertising. They said that they found that images with less than 20% text perform better, but they're not requiring that that has to be true for your ad to run. So for all of you who have stressed about, just one extra word or overlapping, and having just, 22, 23% coverage of text when you're trying to get 20% or below, you don't have to stress about that anymore. Now, with that said, I do recommend you not just spamming, having crazy text on your image ads or your images for ads. I don't think that's a good look, but at least the stress is off a little bit. So if you're trying to convey a certain message and it goes over that 20% a little bit, I think that's a good thing. So for those of you who are excited about this, give me a thumbs up in the comments. I want to know, guys, are you excited for this? We've got Scott Ayers in the house. He's so ready to test the image percentage to see if they really make a difference. Yes, Scott. So who is our content scientist, I can't wait to see the results of that because I'm very intrigued to see if there's a significant difference or not. According to Facebook, they find if it's less than 20% coverage of text that it does perform better. So we will see. We're going to rely on Scott. Scott, you better do that soon because I want to get the news on that. For those of you testing out Reels and into Instagram Reels, they have updated some new features on that. For creators and for business accounts, they have now extended the time from 15 seconds to 30 seconds. TikTok is still 60 seconds, but they're getting there. They're feeling it out. They haven't really released too much data yet. Instagram has on how many people are using Reels, how successful it's been thus far, but they are continuing to make tweaks to it. Also, they're extending the timer from 3 seconds to 10 seconds, which I like because I feel like 3 seconds is just too short, that if I'm trying to shoot something myself and I've got my phone on a stand and I'm trying to create a reel and I run back to position, I'm like out of breath, or I'm just not in the right spot where I want to be. So that's huge for the 10-second timer because it gives you times to adjust, to just take a couple deep breaths and then go ahead and do what you want to do. So those are quick updates for Reels. And I know we've got one of our Reel experts in the house as well, Rebecca Ward. But yes, for creator accounts and business accounts, it's extended from 15 to 30 seconds and the timer from 3 to 10 seconds, which is awesome for all of us creating content, right? Because that's our job. We do that every single day. So for those of you looking forward to that, give a big thumbs up. Rebecca says, I'm happy about that. Yes, I do know you're happy. And you guys, if you don't follow Rebecca Ward, do so on Instagram, on all the social channels, because she's amazing and awesome. And Rebecca, you can link to your accounts in the comments as well. Julie Riley said, I look forward to not having an ad be decreased in performance on those few times. I need more text for those times that a logo flags the text. Yes, this is true. Logos were always a trouble spot for me as well. So yeah, the less than 20, that rule being gone is very good news. Scott Ayers says, when I go to search on IG, the default Reels, it shows me there are no NSFW. I don't understand why, and doesn't make me want to even go look. I love you, Scott. We can dive into that later. And then Julie says, glad to see Reels quickly updating. Yes, this is true. They need to change the edit option so that you can edit after you film, not only right at the filming. And I agree with that. And a lot of people have complained about that. So yes, absolutely. Scott, I'm looking forward to all the tests that you're going to be doing with everything going on. And one of the biggest news, I would say, of the entire week was LinkedIn. LinkedIn wanted to just jump in at the end of Q3 with a bang. So first of all, you probably noticed yesterday, it was early yesterday morning, where the whole layout, I actually thought it was Facebook. Because it just, honestly, I feel like, I don't know, let me know what you think the new layout looks like for LinkedIn. Does it look like Facebook? Does it look like something different for you? Do you like the new layout? Let me know. For mobile, for desktop, new layouts for LinkedIn. They also launched stories, which is so awesome. So if you go to LinkedIn, literally, you see them up at the top. And if you haven't watched their LinkedIn video yet, you'll see some of our special guests that we've actually already had on our show on their kind of intro to Reels. And you can see and start watching everyone's Reels and create your first one. So, or not Reels, stories, I should say. So LinkedIn has stories. You'll see that at the top. So one more place to add some stories. And also, which is really cool, messaging within LinkedIn is huge. A lot of us, though, we get the spamminess that we just don't want. But let's say you were talking with a client. A lot of people do business on LinkedIn. You can now do audio and videos. You can record video and send them within the app, through the messaging app. And so I think that's really huge too, when you're doing business, connecting with people, interviews, looking for jobs, all of those things. So a lot of fun stuff going on in the world of social media. At the same time, I feel like it's a relief. We don't have to stress about the 20% rule, especially going into the holidays where things are going to be extra crazy. I love that Reels with Instagram is continuing to innovate and make things easier, which I think they will continue to do so even more, extend that time, and do allow editing after the fact as well. And with LinkedIn, they just want to help people become more of a hub, a focus. And if you really think about a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, no one considered LinkedIn a place where they consume information, consume news. But now, it's jumping right in there and competing with every other, it was a major social network, but it really is competing now with content and where people consume information. So much going on, so much information. Let me know what piece of news this week was the top news that you're just like, wow, that blew you away. Carrie Ray said LinkedIn now has stories. I have to catch up. Yes, go to LinkedIn on your phone right now, Carrie, and take a look and just check out. Everyone's doing their first story right now, which is super cool. Justin said, just in time for Halloween, scare people with your voice. Justin, that's clever. That is clever marketing right there. Our guest is chuckling in the background, and I agree. That is some clever marketing. Justin, we need to just have you on this show so we can geek out with you. I would love to do that. We will definitely make that happen. With that said, let's jump right into our guest because he's brilliant, he's amazing, and we just can't say enough things about him. So Juntae Delane is the founder of Digital Branding Institute and principal consultant for Digital Delane. He frequently delivers talks around the country advancing the practice of digital branding. Juntae not only writes the premier digital branding blog, but also shares his expertise through his podcast, the Digital Branding Podcast. So he's all about branding, guys. So if you guys are thinking of starting a side business, a brand, or something else, he is your man, but he's your man for just about everything. If you can't catch him on stage or online, you can probably find him at the gym doing his 1000th push-up. And he says hashtag not really, but I'd say really. Yeah. So Jonte, thank you so much for joining us. Like, you are so awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have a conversation with you. You know, it's always good catching up to you.
Yes. Oh my God. Good catching up with you too. And for those of you that are watching us, all you viewers, if you have branding questions, let us know when it comes to the holidays. If you're thinking of starting a brand, I know this is very interesting times. But a lot of stuff that Jonte has to talk about can work during any environment, obviously, because it's his expertise. So if you have questions, make sure to ask them as we go along, because it's not every day you get him on a live show and you get to talk to him, right? And geek out about things. But really quick, can you give us just a brief background of basically where you started and then how you got to starting your own business and speaking in your career and everything?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be speaking with you guys today. Essentially, how I got my start was being a DJ, a college DJ, and I became pretty successful and popular in the Bay Area. I went to UC Berkeley for my undergrad and started to work on other music artists and bands and helping them to build a fan base online, really learning implying what I've learned in school to working on some of those side projects. And then it just basically blew up. It became very popular, started working with music labels, and then started focusing on products and services. And then from there, I dipped my toe in the water to try to create my own social network, because some other guy on the East Coast started his only for college students, but you know, he's worth $63 billion. And let's just say I don't have that much in the bank. But the overall gist of my maturation into digital started from just my interest in where the market was going and how people were using this new tool called digital, right? This new platform. And so that's essentially how I got my start. Worked on many different passion projects, was a manager or consultant or director for many different brands, from Coca-Cola to Verizon, Sony, Paramount Pictures, NBC Universal, so on and so forth. And so I really earned my chops by working on those projects, and got a couple degrees in the meantime. And now I've founded Digital Branding Institute, which is a resource for all things digital branding. And really, I started that because I was able to build my brand by focusing on learning with my community, right? And I understood that the more I put content out there, the more visibility I got. I was able to get speaking engagements, travel around the world speaking about branding and marketing and so on. Was able to be put on different lists, things like that. So I know all about branding and how things should be positioned in the market by really understanding what the consumer wants and giving them exactly that, and communicating those missions and values of an organization or an individual. So that's essentially how I got my start. And I'm looking forward to responding to some of the questions you guys may have today about branding.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So guys, just think about, your own personal brand. If you're thinking of starting a side business, the company you work for, the business that you own, whatever you're thinking of, there is no silly questions. So definitely ask them. And so I have a question for you. So with everything that's, going on right now and you want to start a brand, and I know you speak to this a lot, you present about creating and starting a brand and growing a thriving brand during a crisis. What are the key things that businesses, business owners, employees, social media managers, all of the like need to keep in mind and consider when it comes to growing and thriving? Because we all want the overnight success, right? We all just want to be like, I want to be like Juntae and just have almost 250,000 Twitter followers. I just want that, which is amazing that you have. But how can people grow and thrive during a crisis, and during a time like that? What are the steps they need to follow and things they need to keep in mind?
Yeah. So I think the first step would be to understand your target audience, right? And not only that, but understand how that target audience behaves, in particular in the digital platform. So when you look at growing a brand during a crisis, we have to look at what those consumers are going through in that crisis, right? And it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter who you're trying to target. There is something that your target audience is going through politically. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they sit on. They have some concerns about what's going on. And oftentimes they're looking to patronize brands that either are aligned or that speak out or speak up about a specific topic. So when you think back, maybe 10, 12 years ago, 2008, we had the economic crisis where there was a financial meltdown because of the housing industry, shady, unethical business practices. And then you had the Occupy Wall Street movement, if you guys remember that. After that point is when you started to see the way in which brands can communicate with consumers start to change. I would see commercials and communication start to change because there was a more of a focus on, for example, interracial couples or people that are on commercials that don't have that commercial look, so to speak, right? Brands had to be more transparent in terms of opening up their business practices so that everyone could see that they're not doing the same shady and unethical stuff that these housing and financial industry giants have done. So it's important to understand that consumers react based on different crises, right? Back then, they reacted on the shady and unethical practices. Today, they're focused on other things politically, right? I mean, there's you guys didn't think that we were going to have a conversation of brands and not bring up politics, right? It happens, right? They're interwoven. And so it's important to think about, what is really resonating with your target audience in terms of things that are going on in society and how your brand values are being conveyed during this time. So when you're thinking about starting a brand or growing a brand during this time, you want to focus on those specific things. And what you ultimately want to do is speak to it. And even if you don't, quote unquote, pick a side, you want to acknowledge the fact that this is what's going on. And it's very important. It doesn't matter if you are an individual that's trying to build a brand, if you are a growing brand, or if you are an established brand, you have to speak up and say something. So acknowledging the fact of what's going on in society and how it affects your target audience, that is going to bring your brand into the conversations of your target audience, which could increase your organic reach. So start by focusing on your audience first.
And I think that's just key for everything. Instead of focusing on, you yourself, the brand, what you want to do, the audience, what they're going through, their needs, their problems, solving their problems, I think is so key. And I think we're still in this kind of interesting environment, especially for those of us in the US. We've got a very important election coming up this year. And I think as social media managers and business owners, we're all trying to figure out, okay, and there's a lot of other things going on too. How do we navigate this, and how do we let our audience know? Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's important to do so. And when you take cues from other social networks, they have voter registration, right? Making sure that people have access or knowledge about where they can either mail in ballots or just register to vote overall. And again, they're not picking sides here, right? But they're just addressing what's going on with their target audience and making sure that they have the tools and the resources to execute.
Which I love, and making sure that their audience's voices are heard, making sure
Absolutely.
that they have everything they need, which I
Yes.
love. Oh my gosh. It's so good. So we already have some questions.
Sure.
And so this is Rebecca Ward. She's in the UK. She's awesome. She's an Instagram Reels, story, actually all social media expert, but she has some great questions. So she said she's stuck with colors. She says, I have a beautiful gold logo, but I'm attracted to coral as a color that pops out on Instagram. Do you think the two can live in peace, or should I try to stick to one color? And so that's a great design and branding question. I honestly think you could make it. I understand how you like one specific color and like that it pops, but I feel like there's a way that you could blend it together somehow in a nice way. Either use the coral that you love that pops and intricate some kind of like design with the gold, the lettering be gold, or do something since you like that too. But I would love to know your thoughts when it comes to just branding as well, and what you've seen when it comes to logos and design.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think ultimately it really revolves around you, right? And so
Mhm.
whatever color scheme is most important to you, stick with that. If you're looking to provide your audience with some insight on what you're looking to do with that brand, perhaps you can ask them. That would be a good piece of content to create on social media and have them pick the colors or have a vested interest in the success of your brand, right? So those are two things that I would consider.
I love that. And so kind of piggybacking off of what you said, Juntae, the fact that if you're not sure what to do, ask your audience, but I love this. If this is something is personal, it's your brand, it's what you stand for, it's what you live, what you should be your brand basically. And I think Justin loved your sign in the back. Yeah.
There
um,
it is.
but yes, be your brand. So it doesn't like, at the end of the day, it's not going to be your logo that draws your audience to you. It's going to be what you stand for, the content, and how you make the people feel that consume it. So don't stress about it too much. But Rebecca, we're a lot alike. I was stressing over design of my Instagram story highlights with my boyfriend last night. And I was just like, he's like, Jen, stop making it so complicated. Because you get so fixated on it. Just, do one thing. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time on that where you should be focused somewhere else. But I also love the idea of, if you want to ask your audience and everyone that follows you, do it, because then they feel even more tied to you, right?
Yeah. And think about it like fashion, right? I mean, you have people where you look at them on the red carpet and you're like, what the heck are they wearing? Right. But the thing about it is they have a story behind it. They have a why. And because if you're able to communicate that why, then people are going to be more receptive. So it doesn't matter how it looks, but if there's a story and there's a context around it, it's going to work because it's you.
See, I love that. Listen to, man, we just need you around all the time, Juntae. We just do. And
I'm here.
I know
We can do it. We can do it. Yeah.
This is awesome. And you guys, these are great questions. So Rebecca has another one. She says, how do you define a brand? Is it a mix of the person, values, beliefs, and or the font's, colors, message? That's good.
Yeah, that's great. And so how I would define a brand and how my team at Digital Branding Institute defines a brand is really a focus on the digital platform, which means it's your identity, your visibility, and your credibility in the digital space, right? So it's not only the colors and the fonts and so on and so forth. Of course, that makes up your brand, just like what you may wear in some cases may also represent you. It's a statement and so on, right? But it's also the fact of how your brand is presented in the digital space. All of the individual touch points that your consumers interact with is that digital brand. And so they're not only interacting with your Facebook group cover photo, right? They're interacting with the people inside that group. they're interacting with the type of content that you're distributing, right? All that goes into your digital brand and it shapes that perception and opinion about you and your brand. And based on that perception, it really is going to dictate whether that person is going to do business with you or not. So, from that perspective, I think that instead of thinking about just simply your brand in terms of its physical and visual attributes, you should also think about the engagements. You should also think about the connections and networks that are aligned with your brand in terms of advocates, influencers, strategic partners, so on and so forth, are all a part of your brand. Because nowadays, in this type of cancel culture, right, the people that you associate with, the platforms that you associate with, are naturally going to be questioned by many of the consumers. So all that plays into your digital brand.
It's, man, you were just like, you need to write like just multiple books and just make it happen. Because this is awesome. And we have so many questions. We're going to jump to another one. So you guys, I actually sent Juntae a whole list of questions. We will not get to them because these are great. Another question: if our brand is focused on our audience, how do we communicate this message we put out? And like my thing is, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, Jonte, is we don't necessarily have to say it, but it's with what we do, right? We ask them questions. We say, even put out a message. What's one of your trouble problems that you have right now? Or what are you trying to troubleshoot? How can I help you find a solution? Or things like that, is in a way letting people know that you're all about the audience, right? You're trying to help them. But is there something else that you can add to that?
Yeah, I think it really starts with having the mentality, the consumer first mentality, right? And so I guess this would be focusing on being consumer centric, right? So oftentimes I'll come across clients that are looking to start or build a brand. And the first thing that they're concerned with is how they're going to create some sales and marketing to bring in more revenue, right? And so what I try to do is flip that strategy on its head and say, wait a minute, what exactly does your customer want? And then how does your offering align with those wants and expectations? That should be first, right? So let's think about it this way. Depending on who you are, if you are a marketing executive, if you are a manager, assistant, and so on, we all have different things that we should consider when creating a campaign. So if you focus on seeing what the consumer wants first and then creating a campaign around it, that is going to win at the end of the day. Oftentimes we are P&L focused, profit and loss focused, and we are focusing on, okay, we need to have a campaign to bring in this revenue, to showcase this product, or so on and so forth. So as an executive, as a marketing manager, one thing you can do is flip that on its head and say, well, hold on to that idea. Let's tap into our Facebook group and see if that's something that they are wanting. And if they want that, then what are ways, based on that intel, what are some ways that we'd be able to communicate that new offering to them? Right. So those are just certain cues to become more consumer centric by focusing on them first and then your offering. And at the end of the day, you're going to win.
And those are such key points and so important to think about. And so hopefully, Rebecca, that answered some of your questions. If you have more, keep asking them because those are fantastic. We have one from Julie Riley that says, what are your thoughts on rebranding after a partnership change when you have an established name, social handles, logo, websites, and such? Which is a very good question because when you think of a certain brand, you're just like, okay, I know it's these two people, but if the partnership changes for some reason, and you just own it on your own, do you want to completely rebrand? How do you do it? But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? That's a fantastic question, Julie.
It is. And oftentimes those are some questions that clients come to us with at Digital Delane. And so essentially what we would do is do a complete brand audit first and foremost. We'll get an understanding of, for example, your SEO and that domain name. If you're looking to change that domain name, what effects would you have on your domain authority? What are ways that we can pass on some of that authority to the new brand name? We would create a strategy around rolling out that new brand. But then also we would really ask, what is that relationship like between you and the partner, right? To make sure that if you guys are completely washing your hands of it, will that partner be able to offload some of the pre-existing assets to you, things like that. So it depends upon that relationship. We'll figure that out. Then we'll work on that audit for your digital brand to figure out what things can be transitioned in terms of search visibility, in terms of audience, so on and so forth, email list, pixels, all that stuff, right? And then after that, we'll really look at, okay, if you are looking to do that rebrand, how can we make the new brand better than the last brand, right? And so we'll take a look at your business model, your communications and marketing strategy, and so on, to figure out, what were some holes in the old brand that could be filled with the new brand, right? And then from there, we create a strategy. So that's sort of a long way of answering your question in terms of the process that you can implement in order to launch that rebrand. And then specifically when you're looking at, the relationship between your business partner who you've cut ties with, you would really want to figure out, okay, what are ways that you can make this amicable if it's not, so that the transition can be easy.
That's such great advice. I love the step-by-step process that you took, and you explained there, because there are a lot of different people out there that, just things change, and sometimes, they can't be involved in a business that they want to be in, or, there's always changing things, people adding to a company or leaving a company. So that advice is amazing. So Julie, hopefully that answered your question. If you have more, guys, let us know. These questions are fantastic. So Juntae, we have another one. This is awesome, guys. I love this conversation. It's great. Yeah. Scott Ayers is asking you, should companies talk about politics and social justice issues? Do you feel like that's a place for them? And I think you answered that a little bit earlier on, kind of just letting people know that they're aware of the situation, kind of like with the voting, right? Yeah. Giving them the tools, making sure that they have a voice if they want a voice. But it can be difficult sometimes.
It certainly can. And I think first and foremost, you'd want to make sure that if that message actually aligns with your target audience, and even if it doesn't, you still want to make sure that you are speaking out or creating some awareness of the fact of what's going on in the world today, right? In terms of speaking specifically on certain politics and so on, ultimately, it's always best to focus on are you actually putting forth the action, or you're putting forth the content or engagement. Now, here's what I mean by that. Are you just saying things just to say them? Or are there things that you're doing or that your employees are doing that actually hold up to what you're saying, right? That convey the true value of what you're saying. And if that's the case, then it's an easy segue into a conversation about politics. Oftentimes when people consider corporations, and depending upon what the side of the aisle you're on, you have some people that say corporations should be people, right? In terms of tax like people, so on and so forth. I can go hop on a soapbox about that. But if that resonates with you from a tax and the legal side of business, then on the personal side of business, maybe you should consider that as well. I mean, if you're thinking that a corporation is a person, perhaps that corporation should speak like a person. And I think that there are certain risks that you would naturally take, but again, without any risks, there's no reward. And so I think based on speaking out, you wouldn't necessarily alienate your clientele, but you would become a more relevant brand. And at the end of the day, if you want to protect that future of your brand, relevancy is key.
And you couldn't have said it any better. Relatability, relevancy, all of that is very important. So I love that. And Scott, hopefully that answered your question, because you answered that beautifully. And, I think it's something that many brands and many people, even personally, are just, not sure what to do or what the right thing is to do. And so I love that. And Scott Ayers said, yes. He may be responding, though, to Rebecca Ward, who had a question. Do you think personal brands should wear orange wigs, which our content scientist does? It's so, yeah, but that makes you stand out, though. And that's huge. So yeah, you've got a great personal brand going there, Scott. So you guys, if you have more questions, let us know. But I have a question now. I'm getting a chance. I'm circling back to me. So you talk a lot about digital footprint. And I know we talked about this before a couple months ago, but I'd love for you to kind of recircle back and talk about what your digital footprint exactly is and how it can impact your brand.
Yeah, so your digital footprint is essentially the same thing as you can think about it like your carbon footprint, right? I mean, what are you putting out there in society that creates carbon emissions, so on and so forth? Just like what are you putting out there in the digital space that can create love, you know, anguish, hate, whatever the case may be, right? So think about it in that sense. But in particular, it's all of those digital touch points that your target audience interacts with. So oftentimes what I do at Digital Delane with my team is we would go through all of our clients' digital footprint. So we use Agora Pulse, we'd pull up all of the social accounts on Agora Pulse to make sure that we're looking at what's going on in the timeline of those accounts, so on and so forth. We'll pull up their websites. We'll do search visibility with different browsers and different locations. I can kind of get into weeds of that. We also would focus on some of the last communication that was sent out in terms of long form communication, blog posts, so on and so forth. So we would open up all the tabs of our clients in our browser, and we just talk about it to make sure that things are consistent. There could be things that are left up from last quarter that just may have been forgotten, right? And all these things are important because if a new prospect reaches your touch point and there's old information, what are they going to do, right? They're going to bounce, they're going to move to something else, or it's going to be a little off-putting because it's going to look like, well, they aren't really as active. So is that a good representation of their company? So on and so forth, right? So those are some things that you should think about when discovering what your footprint looks like and getting that bird's eye view of how consumers interact with your brand in the digital space.
And I think people need to keep their digital footprint in mind, because when it comes to overall strategy and mapping everything out, that is something to definitely consider. And you hone in and focus on that a lot when you talk on stage, which I think is so important. Scott Ayers wants you on his show, by the way, another Agora Pulse live show. We just want to have you everywhere, Juntae.
I got you, Scott. I got you.
Yeah. We've got Jeff C in the house too. Jeff, how are you? Happy Friday. I'm so glad you're here. So let's talk some more about optimizing your digital brand. So we've discussed now the digital brand footprint and how it can impact your brand, or your digital footprint can impact your digital brand. But how can you optimize your digital brand and get as many people's eyes on it, get it as many places as you possibly can?
Well, yeah. So I think there's many ways to optimize your digital brand. One would be your personality of your brand voice. Another would be maybe some brand signals in terms of search visibility, and I can kind of go into that. And another would probably be your content as well and analytics. So I'll start with the first one. So we talk about personality, and it's important to understand that your personality on social media is going to get more organic reach, right? I mean, we have some salacious things that are on there that creates a whole bunch of engagements. Those engagements feed into the algorithm, and then you automatically get more organic reach. So in order to have that happen, a good starting point would be to be more personal, right? A good case study for that would be Wendy's Roast. I love their Twitter profile. They roast everyone they come into contact with or interacts with their brand, from their competitors to just anyone, right? And it's great because now I think because of that personality, it's really addressing what consumers want when focusing on when interacting with the brand on social media. And really what they want is to be entertained and engaged with, right? I mean, oftentimes we would focus on social media as a customer service platform or channel and forget about the engagements, forget about being entertaining, and so on and so forth. So I think if you're looking to optimize that digital brand, specifically on social media, you want to focus on having more personality, and understanding the fact that you'll more than likely your target audience would not want to be helped, but they want to be engaged with. Right. So that comes with the type of entertaining content and engagements, discussions, and so on that you're having on your social profile. So that's one way to optimize your digital brand, particularly on social media. The other way would be to focus on your brand signals. And so, what does that mean exactly? Well, I believe that Google's algorithm considers your brand signals. And those brand signals are if your accounts are verified, if you are listed in certain directories that could be, an industry directory, as an example. And the reason why I think that's important is because, and again, I'm just kind of hopping on my soapbox here, but you have to think about it, right? During the last 4 years, there was an influx of fake news. So with that fake news, it's very difficult for Google to determine, okay, what piece of content is real, what piece of content is fake, even if it has a whole bunch of backlinks and it's amplified and so on and so forth. So I think with these brand signals, they're going to focus on brands that are actually have verified accounts, as an example, as a part of their algorithm. So that's one way that you can optimize your digital brand, particularly for search. And the other way, last one. The other way is the other way is to focus on what's actually converting from an analytics perspective. So oftentimes we'll have clients that come to us at Digital Delane, and we'll do an audit on their content and look at their Google Analytics, and we'll say, hey, there's been a bunch of traffic that has gone to a particular page on your site, but yet and still you're creating content for content's sake, and you're not beefing up that content that is actually working. And this is not the content that is either just highly viewed, but this is the content that actually is converting, right? So what we would do was we'd find ways to beef up that content, so that as more people come to it, they even have more information that they're able to get. Or we'll create spin-off pieces of content that amplifies that original piece of content so that we can have overall more converting content on the website. So those are three key ways that I would optimize my digital brand, in particular for social, for search, as well as from a content perspective.
And I love that. And I'm sorry, guys, they are doing some yard work all of a sudden right outside my place. So if it gets really loud here, I'm so sorry. But hopefully you guys were all writing these down, because these are brilliant tips. And we actually have another question that I want to get to before we start, because we're getting close to the top of the hour, which is amazing. So, and this is another fantastic question. I love this. This is from Julie Riley. On this talk of being more personal, do you feel that a solopreneur does better operating as themselves a personal brand or under a company brand, which is a great voice? And I think one side comment I have is if you're a brand, you need to determine your brand voice as well. But I want you to take this and run with it, Juntae. Just do it.
All right. Got the baton. Let's go. All right. So, hey, so that's a question I get often. And I really kind of boil it down to this point. Most people like to do business with people they know, like, and trust. So when you think about that, ultimately, you're going to want to infuse more of your personal brand into your business brand. But how would you strategically work that out? Well, some clients that we work with, they have their own personal brand and they also have their company brand. And let's just say, for example, let's take me, for example, right? So I'm here at this Agora Pulse live stream. And what I probably would do is I would talk about the inner workings of this particular webinar, and then focus on sort of what I'm doing behind the scenes, that sort of thing, right? And post that on my personal profile. And then on my business profile, I would focus on the tidbits, the valuable nuggets that have come from this live stream, right? So those are some ways that you can strategize on the types of content that you should put on your personal and business profiles. Ultimately, I do think there needs to be a mix. Why? Is because people naturally expect that. And if you come across two brands, one brand you may know the owner, the CEO, the CMO a little bit more based on your interactions on social media, or another brand that you may know about and may do equal work, you're probably going to choose the brand that you have a personal engagement or relationship or affinity for their owner. So think about it in that sense, and just make sure that you have the right strategy for posting, and you can split that strategy between what you're going to do for your personal and for your business accounts.
And I think the overall theme that you've talked about here is it's taking a step back and almost doing an audit and going through the process and steps. It's going to take some time, a couple of hours, but to really understand what messaging you want, what you stand for, and what your goals are, and what you're trying to do, and what your audience needs are. I feel like everything that you've talked about ties together, but it's taking a step back and just taking a holistic view of everything of your brand, which is so smart and so brilliant. And with that, I want to double check and make sure that we don't have any more questions. One of the most important things I think that you would agree with is employee advocacy, right? Where employees are your biggest assets, really, when it comes to promoting how an amazing company you are. Well, what's pretty awesome, Juntae? We actually have a free tool to help you guys with employee advocacy. And nice. We're actually going to play that video for you really quick before we have some fun trivia, guys. And we're going to give away an Agora Pulse mug or a shirt, your choice if you win. But first, let's talk about how important employee advocacy is and how easy it can be to do.
Imagine a simple way to encourage your employees to share company news, and a clear way to track website visits from these shared posts. This employee advocacy dream come true can be yours with Easy Advocacy, a free tool from Agora Pulse. Simply log in to Easy Advocacy, enter your distribution list, create your campaign, and click Send. Everyone on your distribution list will soon receive an email inviting them to visit the campaign page and share to multiple social networks with just a few clicks. From the Easy Advocacy dashboard, track the shares and website visits of your campaign and find your top advocates from the leaderboard. Discover how easy it is to run an employee advocacy campaign with Easy Advocacy by Agora Pulse.
All right, guys, and you see there, go to easy-advocacy.com. Super fun, super awesome. But if you aren't incorporating your employees in your strategy, your social media marketing strategy, you need to do that, because if you're not producing content that they want to share, then you'll want to take a look at your content and understand why they don't want to share it and produce more shareable, engaging content. With that said, are you ready for some trivia, Juntae and everyone else? Well, you might be the winner of an Agora Pulse mug or shirt. It's your choice, but let's geek out just a little bit and talk about some fun trivia. So the first question, guys, hopefully you guys know this, but if not, when you answer these, you answer 1-A, B, C, or D, 2-A, B, C, or D, so we know which question you are answering. So the first question is, are you guys ready? According to Omnicore study, what percentage of online users ages 18 to 29 are on Facebook? What percentage of online users ages 18 to 29 are on Facebook? Is it A, 62%, B, 71, C, 79, or D, 88%. Juntae, I'm going to ask your opinion. Now, unfortunately, you
Oh,
can't win.
man.
I'm so sorry. This is for the audience. So you unfortunately can't win. You don't even have to say an answer, but say what you're maybe leaning towards.
Wow. So I'm
I
going
like,
to say I would lean toward the lesser percentage, only because we know that with all the proliferation of other platforms, and we know that Facebook is actually growing in the older demographics. So I probably lean toward A.
and you guys are all leaning in that they're taking your advice, and some of them did it before. Yeah. Oh, I have the girls got it right, Jen. I tend to give away the answer, guys, and I'm going to try and get better at that. People can read my body language. I've heard on this show, they just, in my voice, I give it away. But Megan says A, Rebecca says A, Julie says A, Justin says B. These are all fantastic answers. If you haven't answered yet, please do so in the next couple of seconds, because we're going to dive right in to question 2 in about 2 seconds. But those are fantastic answers. So let's go to question 2. According to Omnicore study, what percentage of Facebook's mobile ad revenue comes from Instagram? Let's say that a little slower. What percentage of Facebook's mobile ad revenue comes from Instagram? Is it A, 20%, B, 40%, C, 60%, D, 80%? This is a tough one, guys. I made it extra tough just for you.
Is this a trick question?
No, it's not a trick question. It's real. This is a real question. Don't Google it. Don't Google it. What are you guys thinking? Scott says A. Anyone else? I know, guys. Just throw the answers out. 2C, Rebecca. Good choice. Yeah, you guys are doing good. This is great. Julie says 2B. Those are good answers. Justin, 2C. Scotty has got C. Megan, C. Good job. Good job, guys. Wow. All right. So that's an interesting question. I'm not going to give the answer away. We wait 24 hours in case people rewatch this and they have an opportunity to answer as well. But good job, guys. Fantastic. I love it. You guys did an amazing job. And with all that said, I just can't believe we're almost at the top of the hour, but I want to give you, Juntae, if there's any advice you want to give heading into 2020, and also where people can follow you, hire you to speak, hire you to help them with their strategy, their business, everything. Where can people do that?
Awesome. Well, listen, I'll leave you guys with some advice to grow your brands in 2020. So ultimately, we know that we're in the midst of a pandemic, and this has changed the way in which people communicate with their brands and just friends and family and so on. And so it's important to note that the communication going forward should certainly consider the behaviors and what's plaguing your target audience during this time, because we're going to be suffering even when we come onto the tail end of this. We're still going to be affected by it, right? So make sure you include that in your communications. And then if you're looking for a marketing partner, strategist, consultant, and so on, hit me up. DigitalDelane.com is the website. I also have a newsletter that we're launching in a couple of weeks. We're really, really excited about it. It's called The Brand Behavior. And it's a weekly newsletter that is going to give you everything that I talked about today, including what's going on around the world and in the US that has to do with building a brand and things that are going to impact your brand. All right. So go to the digitaldelane.com/brand behavior to sign up for that newsletter. And if you want to, get in touch with me on social media at Jonte Delane at all the social handles, you can reach me there and ask me any questions you like.
Oh my gosh, Juntae, I just have to say thank you so much. And Rebecca Ward says, you've been amazing. And that is true. I'm going to echo that. You've been incredible, sharing just so much knowledge, advice. I feel like we could all just sit and just listen to you talk forever. And so we're definitely likely going to have you on another one of our live shows very soon. So I just want to say thank you so much from all of us here at Agorapulse, from all of our viewers as well. And before we leave, though, we do want to make sure that you take a advantage. And if you're looking for something to binge watch this weekend, maybe, and you want to, get, your social strategy and everything up to par and all set for Q4, think about binge watching our Social Success Summit LinkedIn edition, because even though the live keynotes were in August, you still have access to over 25 sessions. You can still watch the replays of our live keynotes in our Facebook group, Social Pulse Community. So just join Social Pulse Community. It's free. And then you can go to summit.agorapulse.com. Register. It's free, guys. Absolutely free. And you know what I heard? My producer actually is my boss on the show, but I have a funny feeling that we're supposed to actually end it, access to everything this Sunday. But I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to forget about it this weekend. And we're probably not going to end it till maybe Wednesday next week. So you have plenty of time to just search and figure out which ones you want, what trainings you need, which ones you want to learn, all of that good stuff. So definitely do that. It can't hurt to just go on there, register, click the button, and take a look and see what you can and want to learn. With that said, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone for joining us. It's been an amazing show, an amazing week. You all are wonderful. If AgoraPulse or I or any of our team members can ever help you, please let us know, message us, because we want to help you in any way that we can. And we have another lineup of amazing live shows next week. We're actually taking a week off of Social Pulse Weekly. We got our live show, our Lunch and Learn actually live show, Tuesday, 1 o'clock Eastern, in our Facebook group. So you have to be there to watch it. That's with Danny Monzon. We've got Wednesday Social Media Lab Live with Tim and Jim from the Tim and Jim Show. Thursday, Agency Chat. We've got Michael Wark, 2 p.m. Eastern. Search hashtag Agency Chat on Twitter, and you'll see all our amazing guests and the awesome interactions and things that happen there on Twitter. And then not next Friday, but October 9th, we're going to have Melanie Diesel live with us on Social Pulse Weekly, kicking off Q4. So with that said, make an amazing rest of the day, make it an amazing weekend, and we're here for you if you need anything. You guys take care. Bye.